December 1941, Detroit, Michigan. Henry Ford, the richest industrialist in America, the man who revolutionized manufacturing with the assembly line, opens a wooden package that has traveled across 2 oceans during the height of World War II. Inside, a simple spinning wheel, handcrafted from teak wood, small enough to fit in a briefcase. The gift tag reads, "From Mahatma M.K. Gandhi." Think about that for a moment. The father of mass production receiving a gift from a man who rejected industrialization. The symbol of American capitalism holding a tool that represented the complete opposite philosophy: self-reliance, simplicity, village economy. But here's what Henry Ford understood that most people missed. This wasn't just a spinning wheel. This was the weapon that would bring the British Empire to its knees. This tiny wooden device, the Charkha, became more powerful than armies, more effective than violence, more transformative than any political revolution in modern history. Between 1920 and 1947, millions of Indians picked up spinning wheels and made a single, radical choice: to spin their own cloth rather than buy British textiles. That choice cost Britain billions. It united 400 million people across castes, religions, and languages, and it proved that economic resistance could defeat military might. Before we continue with this episode, kindly like and subscribe to our channel to help us grow and reach others that love this kind of content faster. And also, let us know where you are watching from in the comment section. We pay good attention to our comment section, and we will love to respond to your comments. Thank you. The Charkha appeared on India's first national flag. Gandhi himself spun for at least 30 minutes every single day for decades, even in prison. And when India finally won independence on August 15, 1947, it was khadi cloth, fabric spun on the Charkha, that the Indian flag was made from. This is the story of how a medieval spinning wheel became the symbol of modern freedom, how ancient tradition defeated industrial empire, and how one man transformed the simple act of making thread into the most profound act of resistance the world had ever seen. Welcome to the revolution you can spin. To understand why the spinning wheel mattered, we need to understand what Britain did to India's textile industry. And I need to warn you, this is economic violence on a scale that's almost incomprehensible. Rewind to the early 1700s, before British rule. India was the world's leading manufacturer and exporter of textiles. Indian cotton fabrics, muslins so fine they were called woven air, silks that took dyers years to perfect, hand-painted chintz that European aristocrats coveted. These weren't just products, they were the gold standard of global trade. Indian textiles accounted for approximately 25% of global textile trade. Villages across the subcontinent hummed with the sound of spinning wheels and hand looms. Millions of people, weavers, spinners, dyers, traders, made their livelihood from this ancient craft. The spinning wheel, or charkha, had been used in India since at least the 6th century. It was as fundamental to Indian village life as farming. Women spun cotton into thread during their spare hours. Weavers transformed that thread into fabric. The system had sustained Indian communities for over 1,000 years. The British Industrial Revolution. Then came the machines. Britain's Industrial Revolution, spinning jennies, power looms, and steam engines could produce cotton fabric faster and cheaper than any human hand. But there was a problem. British cotton fabric couldn't compete with Indian quality. So Britain changed the rules. After the Battle of Plassey in 1757, the British East India Company began its conquest of India. And one of their first targets wasn't military, it was economic. Here's what they did. Step 1. Raw material extraction. Britain began importing massive quantities of raw cotton from India at artificially low prices. Indian farmers were forced to sell their cotton to British merchants at rates that barely covered costs. Step 2. Manufacturing in Britain. That raw cotton was shipped to Britain's textile mills in Lancashire and Manchester. There, machines spun it into thread and wove it into fabric. Step 3. Forced import back to India. The finished British textiles were then imported back into India and sold, often at prices lower than Indian handloom products could compete with. Think about the economic model. India grows the cotton. Britain manufactures it. India buys back the finished product. India provides both the raw material and the market, while Britain captures all the manufacturing profit. The impact was catastrophic. British textile imports to India increased dramatically throughout the 1800s, flooding Indian markets. By the mid-19th century, machine-made British cloth had overwhelmed local production. Millions of Indian weavers and spinners lost their livelihoods. Traditional textile centers, cities like Dhaka, known for its legendary muslins, fell into ruin. Artisans who had practiced their craft for generations found themselves unemployed, starving. The British also enacted policies like the Calico Acts, which initially protected British manufacturers from Indian competition and later imposed tariffs that made Indian textiles expensive in Western markets while keeping British imports to India cheap. India was systematically transformed from a textile exporter into a source of cheap raw materials. One British colonial officer admitted that the bones of cotton weavers were bleaching the plains of India. This wasn't metaphor, it was literal. Weavers starved, villages collapsed, an entire economy was destroyed. By 1850, India's share of world manufacturing output had fallen from 25% to just 2%. The country that had once clothed the world couldn't clothe its own people. Unemployment was rampant, poverty deepened, and with every yard of Manchester cloth sold in Indian markets, British profits grew, while Indian artisans sank further into destitution. This was the economic reality when Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi began his fight for Indian independence. Gandhi's relationship with the spinning wheel didn't begin in India. It began in South Africa. From 1893 to 1915, Gandhi worked as a lawyer in South Africa, fighting discrimination against Indian immigrants. It was there that he developed his philosophy of satyagraha, truth force, soul force, non-violent resistance. But he wasn't thinking about spinning wheels yet. That would come later. When Gandhi returned to India in 1915 at age 45, he traveled extensively, studying the conditions of ordinary Indians. What he saw shocked him. Villages in desperate poverty, farmers crushed by debt, unemployment rampant, and everywhere, people wearing British-made cloth because they could no longer afford or find Indian handloom fabric. Gandhi realized something profound. India's political independence would mean nothing if the country remained economically enslaved. He wrote, "Real Swaraj, or self-rule, will come not by the acquisition of authority by a few, but by the acquisition of the capacity by all to resist authority when abused." Economic self-reliance had to come before political freedom. In 1917, Gandhi decided he needed to learn how to use the charkha himself. But there was a problem. The traditional spinning wheel had nearly vanished from Indian villages. Decades of British economic policy had made spinning economically unviable. Why spend hours spinning thread when you could buy cheap British cloth? The charkhas had been abandoned, the skills forgotten. Gandhi searched for someone who still knew how to spin. He finally found a woman named Gangaben Majumdar, who introduced him to the art and personally taught him the craft.
Gandhi's first attempts were disasters. The thread broke constantly. He couldn't maintain the right speed. The cotton wouldn't form properly. For a man who had studied law in London and negotiated with colonial governors, the humble spinning wheel was humbling. But Gandhi persevered. He understood that if he was going to ask millions of Indians to spin, he had to master it himself. He practiced daily, sometimes for hours. One follower later recalled, he would sit there with cotton and wheel, and the thread would break, and he would start again, and he would say, "This wheel is teaching me patience." Eventually, Gandhi became proficient, and once he mastered the skill, he made a decision that would change history. From that day forward, he would spin for at least 30 minutes every day, no exceptions. Even during the most critical political negotiations, even in prison, every single day for the rest of his life. As Gandhi spun, his philosophy crystallized. The charkha wasn't just about making cloth, it was about dignity, about self-reliance, about reclaiming what had been stolen. He realized three things. First, every yard of Indian-spun cloth meant one less yard of British cloth sold. Economic resistance was possible. Second, spinning could provide supplementary income for millions of underemployed rural Indians, especially during agricultural off-seasons. Third, the act of spinning was meditative, communal, and egalitarian. Rich and poor, high caste and low caste, Hindu and Muslim, everyone could sit together and spin. Gandhi wrote, "The spinning wheel represents to me the hope of the masses. The spinning wheel is itself an exquisite piece of machinery. The movement of the wheel is direct and continuous. There is no complexity, there are no intricate mazes. The wheel is the symbol not just of mechanical excellence, but also of peace." There was still a practical problem. Traditional floor spinning wheels were bulky and difficult to transport. If spinning was going to become a mass movement, the tool needed to be portable. In 1929, while imprisoned at Yerawada Jail in Pune, Gandhi held a competition to design a compact, portable spinning wheel. The winning design, the petty charkha or book charkha, folded into a wooden case about the size of a large briefcase. This innovation was crucial. Now anyone could carry a charkha anywhere, to political meetings, to prison, on long journeys. The revolution could travel. The idea of Swadeshi, meaning of one's own country, wasn't invented by Gandhi. It emerged during the 1905 protests against the British partition of Bengal. Indians, outraged by the partition, launched a boycott of British goods, particularly textiles. The charkha became a symbol of this resistance. Patriots urged their fellow countrymen to wear only Indian-made cloth. The impact was immediate. Import of foreign cloth declined by 1.5 crore rupees in 1907 compared to the previous year. Bombay's textile mills earned profits of over 2.27 crore rupees, with shareholders receiving 43% returns. British textile mills in Lancashire faced closure as demand collapsed. But the 1905 movement eventually faded. What made Gandhi's revival different was its scale, its philosophy, and its persistence. In December 1920, the Indian National Congress formally adopted Gandhi's program of non-cooperation with British rule. At its core was the boycott of British goods and the promotion of khadi, hand-spun, hand-woven cloth made on the charkha.
Gandhi didn't just ask people to boycott British textiles. He gave them an alternative. Spin your own, weave your own, wear your own. Khadi was deliberately simple, coarse, unbleached, nothing like the fine fabrics that wealthy Indians had become accustomed to. And that was precisely the point. Wearing khadi was a statement. I reject luxury. I reject foreign dependence. I embrace simplicity and self-reliance. Gandhi himself wore only a simple khadi dhoti, loincloth, and shawl, even when meeting British officials or foreign dignitaries. His iconic image, a thin man in a loincloth sitting at a spinning wheel, became one of the most recognizable symbols of the 20th century. He said, "Khadi is not just cloth, it is a movement. It is the ideology of self-reliance given form." Who joined the movement? The beauty of the khadi movement was its inclusivity. Women, urban women refused foreign bangles and utensils, embracing coarse khadi, despite its inferior quality compared to Manchester cloth. In rural areas, women participated in Swadeshi propaganda meetings, with gatherings of 500 women in single villages, contributing jewelry to national funds. Student involvement provided the movement's most militant edge, organizing picketing of shops selling foreign goods while propagating Swadeshi principles. Peasants and weavers. Perhaps most importantly, the movement revived dying crafts. In Bengal's traditional textile centers, weavers who had abandoned their craft returned to looms as demand for country cloth increased. All classes and castes. The spinning wheel crossed traditional boundaries. Brahmins and Dalits, landlords and peasants, all sat together and spun. This was revolutionary in a society deeply divided by caste. The Charkha became a great equalizer. By 1936, Indian-made cloth sales reached 62%, and by 1945, 76%. The British were losing their most profitable colony's textile market, the very market they had spent 150 years cultivating. Indians started ditching British goods for Indian products, even though they were costlier. The impact was strong, with Britain seeing 20% fall in its product sales. For Britain, this wasn't just about textiles, it was about the entire economic foundation of empire.
Gandhi organized massive public spinning demonstrations. In cities across India, thousands would gather to spin collectively, turning the private act of making thread into a public declaration of independence. On July 31, 1921 in Mumbai, Gandhi led a bonfire where 150,000 pieces of British cloth were burned. The symbolism was unmistakable. India was done with British goods. These bonfires spread across the country. British textiles went up in flames while Indians pledged to wear only khadi. In 1925, Gandhi formalized the movement by creating the All India Spinners Association, or ISA. This organization purchased hand-spun yarn from village spinners at guaranteed prices, provided charkhas to those who couldn't afford them, trained new spinners, marketed and sold khadi cloth, created a sustainable economic model for rural employment. By the 1930s, ISA employed hundreds of thousands of spinners and weavers across India, providing crucial supplementary income to rural families. Here's where Gandhi's commitment became legendary. Every time British authorities imprisoned him, and they did so repeatedly, Gandhi brought his charkha with him. He spun in his cell. He spun during hunger strikes. He spun while negotiating with British officials. The British found this infuriating. How do you break a man whose act of resistance is making thread? One colonial officer complained, "We can imprison Gandhi, but we cannot stop him from spinning, and every thread he spins is a thread of rebellion." In 1931, Gandhi traveled to London for the Second Round Table Conference to negotiate Indian independence. While there, he met Charlie Chaplin, the world's most famous entertainer.
Chaplin asked why Gandhi rejected modern machinery. Wasn't it more efficient? Gandhi explained, machinery in the past has made us dependent on England, and the only way we can rid ourselves of the dependence is to boycott all goods made by machinery. This is why we have made it the patriotic duty of every Indian to spin his own cotton and weave his own cloth. Gandhi wasn't anti-technology, he was anti-exploitation. The Charkha represented an economic system where profits stayed in Indian villages rather than flowing to British factories. Gandhi's 1931 visit to Britain included a trip to Lancashire, the heart of British textile manufacturing. The region was suffering massive unemployment because of India's cloth boycott. Gandhi arrived at Springvale Station near Darwin shortly after 11 at night on Friday, September 26th. The crowd that awaited him was several thousand strong. The next morning, he met with unemployed cotton workers, the very people whose jobs had been destroyed by his boycott. What happened next surprised everyone. Gandhi was received with sympathy and affection by the Lancashire cotton workers, even though they were the ones hit hardest by the boycott. It was a sympathy and affection that he returned. Gandhi told them honestly he sympathized with their suffering, but India's weavers had suffered for a century while Britain prospered. Now the situation had reversed. Economic justice required that Indians reclaim their right to clothe themselves. The workers remarkably understood. Many even expressed support for Indian independence.
For Gandhi, the Charkha was never just about economics. It was a complete philosophy: economic, political, social, and spiritual. Economic philosophy. Gandhi envisioned a village-centered economy where communities were largely self-sufficient. The Charkha represented decentralized production, the opposite of factory capitalism. He wrote, "The Charkha is the sun of the village solar system. Its orbit includes all other aspects of village life." In Gandhi's vision, India wouldn't industrialize like Britain. Instead, villages would produce what they needed locally. This would prevent the concentration of wealth in cities and the exploitation of rural labor. Critics said this was naive romanticism. Gandhi argued it was practical wisdom, an economy that served people rather than profit. Gandhi strategically adopted the spinning wheel as a tool in implementing three primary objectives. 1. Dismissal of British textiles in favor of locally spun khadi. 2. Creation of financial liberty for every citizen. 3. A method of non-violent protest. The Charkha embodied ahimsa, non-violence. You couldn't hurt anyone with a spinning wheel. You could only create. This was resistance without weapons, revolution without bloodshed. It proved that moral force could defeat military power. The Charkha crossed all boundaries. Gender, caste, class, religion, none of it mattered when you sat down to spin. High-caste Brahmins who would never touch a low-caste person's shadow found themselves sitting beside Dalits, spinning together, working toward the same goal. Muslims and Hindus, despite their political differences, united in the Khadi movement. Gandhi saw the Charkha as a tool of social healing. If all of us spin, caste differences will vanish, he insisted. Spiritual philosophy. Labor as meditation. Gandhi saw spinning as a spiritual practice, the repetitive motion, the focused attention, the connection between hand, wheel, and cotton. It was meditation in action. He wrote, "The spinning wheel is a symbol not merely of our economic regeneration, but also of a new spirit, a spirit of love, harmony, and peace." For Gandhi personally, his daily spinning time was sacred. No matter how busy his schedule, he always found 30 minutes to spin. It was his prayer, his meditation, his connection to the millions of Indians he represented. In 1921, the charkha was adopted as a symbol for the provisional government of free India. The flag featured the charkha at its center, a spinning wheel representing India's economic independence and moral strength. This wasn't a military symbol like an eagle or sword, it was a tool of peaceful production. The message was clear: India's strength came from its people's labor, not from violence. In 1947, when India gained independence, the charkha on the flag was later simplified to the Ashoka chakra, the wheel that represents unity and law. But the charkha's influence remained. That central wheel, whether spinning wheel or dharma wheel, represented the circular motion of work, progress, and justice that would drive the new nation forward. Gandhi gave away several of his personal charkhas as gifts to people he admired, always with deep symbolism. In December 1941, Gandhi sent a spinning wheel he had used to Henry Ford as a gift in response to a letter of good wishes from the industrialist. The message? Even the apostle of mass production could learn from the philosophy of localized, human-scale manufacturing. He also gifted a portable charkha to Reverend Floyd A. Puffer, who was working for the poor in India, after using it during one of his sentences at Yerrawada Jail, 1932 through 33. Each charkha represented a personal connection, Gandhi's way of saying, "I have worked this wheel. Now it can inspire you."
The charkha became a dominant image in Indian art and culture. Modernist artists such as M.F. Hussain and Jamini Roy used the nationalist symbol in their work, usually as a representation of rural life and the labor of traditional art forms. Photographers captured Gandhi spinning, the image reproduced millions of times. That visual, the thin man in a loincloth focused on his wheel, became the defining icon of peaceful resistance. Let's get practical for a moment. What does it actually take to spin cotton on a charkha? The floor charkha was a simple wooden contraption placed on the ground where the spinner would kneel or sit beside it. The floor charkha consisted of a distaff, a driving wheel run by hand, and a spindle off which the yarn was spun. The spinner would hold prepared cotton fiber, called roving or sliver, turn the large wheel with one hand, simultaneously draft or pull and thin the cotton with the other hand, allow the twist from the spinning spindle to turn the drafted fibers into thread, guide the newly formed thread onto the spindle. The petty charkha was a portable spinning wheel that folded into a contraption the size of a briefcase and could be carried with a handle. Made of wood, usually teak, it comprised two wheels, a crank, a spindle, and two storage compartments that held the additional spindle and fiber. The petty charkha worked by turning the crank, which simultaneously spun the two wheels and spindle. This was the model Gandhi designed while in prison: compact, portable, efficient. Modern spinners who try the charkha report that it takes weeks to become proficient and months to become skilled. One spinner wrote, "You have to hold the cotton gently, spin the main wheel at the right moment, and maintain a specific speed. If you pull the cotton too strongly, the thread will break. If you rotate the wheel too much, no thread will form, and if you spin it too little, the thread will break. You have to find just the right balance." Another observed, "You can't overthink while spinning the charkha. You have to keep your mind calm. It feels like meditation, where you focus only on the movement of your hands and nothing else." This meditative quality is why Gandhi loved it. Spinning demanded your full attention, quieting the mind's chatter. Gandhi made spinning mandatory for anyone staying at his ashrams. Everyone, from the educated elite to the humblest volunteers, had to complete a daily quota of spinning. He explained, "Spinning must be continuous, not an occasional affair. It must occupy a part of one's daily life."
His typical routine: wake before dawn, prayer and meditation, 1 hour of spinning, often while meeting with visitors. Throughout the day, additional spinning sessions between activities, evening spinning while dictating correspondence. By his own estimate, Gandhi spun thousands of miles of thread during his lifetime. How much could one person produce? An experienced spinner using a petty charkha could produce approximately 100 to 200 yards of medium-weight cotton thread per hour, enough thread in 3 to 4 hours to weave roughly 1 square meter of khadi fabric. This meant that a village family with multiple members spinning part-time could produce enough fabric for their own clothing, plus surplus to sell, providing crucial supplementary income.
Not all khadi was equal. Gandhi was particular about quality. Thread had to be evenly spun, no thick or thin spots. The twist had to be consistent. The thread had to be strong enough for weaving. ISA maintained strict quality standards, paying premium prices for superior thread. This encouraged spinners to develop their skills. Cotton preparation. For spinning, raw cotton had to be prepared. Ginning, removing seeds from cotton bolls, carding, combing fibers to align them, and roving, creating loose rope-like strands ready for spinning. Gandhi promoted the development of improved hand-operated ginning machines and carders to make this preparation easier. In the 1930s and 40s, a skilled spinner could earn approximately 2 to 4 annas per day, supplementary income, not enough to live on, but significant for rural families with seasonal agricultural unemployment. For women especially, this was crucial. Many had no other source of cash income. Spinning provided economic independence within their own homes. Thread spun on charkhas was given to weavers who wove it into fabric on hand looms. This created an interconnected village economy. Farmers grew cotton, ginners prepared it, spinners made thread, weavers made cloth. Everyone earned income from local production. This was Gandhi's economic vision made real. Local production for local needs, with everyone participating and benefiting. The British Empire didn't take kindly to Gandhi's Charkha movement. How do you respond when your enemy's weapon is a spinning wheel? They tried everything. British officials and newspapers mocked the Charkha as primitive and backward. They published cartoons showing Gandhi as a foolish old man living in the past while the modern world moved forward. One British official called it an economically suicidal to reject industrial cloth for hand-spun alternatives. But the propaganda backfired. Every time the British mocked the charkha, it only reinforced its status as a symbol of Indian resistance. Gandhi was imprisoned multiple times between 1922 and 1944, spending nearly 8 years total in British jails. Each time, he brought his charkha. The British faced a dilemma. If they confiscated his spinning wheel, he would fast in protest and become a martyr. If they allowed him to spin, he would continue his economic resistance even from prison. They usually let him keep it. Gandhi turned prison time into productive spinning time. He once wrote, "My jail time has been some of my most productive. I spin without interruption." In 1930, Gandhi led the famous Salt March, walking 240 miles to the sea to make salt in defiance of British salt taxes. That act of civil disobedience sparked nationwide protests. But notice the pattern. Just like spinning thread, making salt was something every Indian could do. Gandhi chose symbols of resistance that were accessible to the masses. You couldn't all march with Gandhi, but you could all spin. You could all make salt. These acts of self-reliance became acts of rebellion.
The British arrested thousands of khadi protesters. In 1930 to 32 alone, over 90,000 Indians were jailed for the crime of spinning their own cloth or picketing British cloth shops. The prisons became spinning centers. Inmates who didn't know how to spin were taught by fellow prisoners. They organized spinning quotas and competitions. One prisoner later recalled, "We were political prisoners, but we saw ourselves as freedom fighters, and our weapon was the charkha." By the 1930s, the economic impact on Britain was undeniable. British textile manufacturers in Lancashire faced bankruptcy. The government was losing tax revenue, and the jewel of the empire, India, was becoming economically independent. Winston Churchill, who despised Gandhi, called him a seditious Middle Temple lawyer, now posing as a fakir, striding half-naked up the steps of the viceregal palace. But Churchill was wrong about one thing. Gandhi wasn't posing. He genuinely believed that economic self-reliance through the charkha would free India. And he was right. During World War II, 1939 to 1945, Britain desperately needed Indian resources and manpower, but the khadi movement had strengthened Indian economic independence. Gandhi and the Indian National Congress launched the Quit India movement in 1942, demanding immediate British withdrawal. The charkha remained central to this campaign, a reminder that India could survive economically without Britain. The British cracked down hard, imprisoning virtually the entire Congress leadership, but they couldn't imprison millions of spinners. The movement continued.
August 15th, 1947. At midnight on August 15th, 1947, India became independent. On 15th August 1947, a hand-spun khadi tricolor Ashoka Chakra Indian flag was unfurled at Princess Park near India Gate, New Delhi, by Jawaharlal Nehru. The flag itself, the very symbol of the new nation, was made of khadi. The cloth that represented resistance had become the cloth of freedom. Gandhi himself did not attend the celebrations in Delhi. He spent Independence Day in Calcutta, fasting and praying, trying to stop Hindu-Muslim violence that had erupted during partition. Even in India's moment of triumph, Gandhi remained focused on healing, unity, and non-violence, the values that Charkha had come to represent. Gandhi was assassinated on January 30th, 1948, by a Hindu extremist who believed Gandhi had been too sympathetic to Muslims. His death shocked the world, but his legacy and the Charkha's legacy continued. The independent Indian government established the Khali and Village Industries Commission, KVIC, in 1956 to promote khadi and other village industries. Today, KVIC employs hundreds of thousands of spinners and weavers, provides training and tools to rural artisans, markets khadi products nationwide and internationally, preserves traditional textile skills. Khadi has seen remarkable resurgence. In the last 9 years, production and sale of khadi clothes has increased significantly. Khadi artisans' remuneration has increased by more than 150% since 2013-14. Indian politicians, especially on Independence Day and Republic Day, traditionally wear khadi as a symbol of connection to Gandhi's legacy and India's freedom struggle. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has promoted campaigns like Vocal for Local and the wearing of khadi as part of Indian identity. He stated, "Association of the countrymen with khadi is creating new records every day, along with promoting employment." Several important Charkha-related sites have been preserved.
Sabarmati Ashram, Ahmedabad. Gandhi himself used a charkha here, and it continues to be an iconic attraction, drawing people who wish to learn about Gandhi's life and his association with the charkha. Indira Gandhi International Airport, New Delhi, the largest charkha in the world, has been placed there for public viewing, a massive 200-square-meter installation symbolizing India's heritage and Gandhi's vision. Multiple museums across India display Gandhi's personal charkhas, the actual wheels he spun with his own hands. These are treated with reverence as both historical artifacts and spiritual symbols. Gandhi's charkha philosophy influenced liberation movements worldwide. Martin Luther King Jr. studied Gandhi's nonviolence and economic boycotts when organizing the Montgomery bus boycott and other civil rights actions. The principle, use economic pressure to create change, came directly from Gandhi's playbook. Nelson Mandela cited Gandhi as an inspiration for South Africa's anti-apartheid struggle, particularly the use of nonviolent resistance. The environmental movement has embraced Gandhi's vision of sustainable, local production as an alternative to global industrial capitalism. The charkha represents what we now call localism or degrowth economics. Fair trade and ethical fashion movements trace their philosophical roots to Gandhi's insistence that how things are made matters as much as what is made. Today, khadi is experiencing a remarkable revival, not just as a political symbol, but as fashion and lifestyle choice. Fashion designers are creating contemporary khadi collections, proving that hand-spun fabric can be both traditional and trendy. Sustainability advocates promote khadi as eco-friendly. It requires no electricity, produces no industrial pollution, and supports rural livelihoods. Artisan cooperatives are using online platforms to sell khadi directly to consumers worldwide, cutting out middlemen and ensuring fair prices for spinners and weavers. One modern khadi entrepreneur explains, when you buy khadi, you're not just buying cloth, you're buying a philosophy. You're supporting village artisans, you're choosing sustainability, you're participating in Gandhi's vision.
The spinning wheel has become one of the most powerful symbols in modern Indian culture. Poet Sarojini Naidu, the Nightingale of India, wrote, "Gandhi came and the charkha spun, and lo, the dream of freedom had begun." Artists from across India have created works centered on the charkha, paintings, sculptures, installations, each interpreting Gandhi's symbol through their own lens. In literature, the charkha appears repeatedly as a symbol of resistance, patience, meditation, and the power of simple actions to create profound change. Gandhi died in 1948, but the lessons of the charkha remain urgently relevant in our 21st century world. The charkha represented decentralized economics, production close to consumption, profits staying in local communities rather than flowing to distant corporations. Today, as we debate globalization's impacts, Gandhi's model offers an alternative. Support local producers, shorten supply chains, keep economic power distributed rather than concentrated. The Buy Local movement, community-supported agriculture, local currencies, these are all descendants of Gandhi's charkha philosophy. The charkha produced zero carbon emissions. It used renewable energy, human labor. It created biodegradable products, natural fiber cloth. It generated no industrial waste. As we face climate crisis, Gandhi's vision of human-scale sustainable production becomes less backward and more forward-thinking. One environmental activist notes, Gandhi understood 80 years ago what we're only now realizing. Infinite growth on a finite planet is impossible. The charkha showed there's another way. The charkha proved that moral force can defeat military might, that economic boycotts can topple empires, that ordinary people making small daily choices can change history. Every modern boycott movement, from Montgomery buses to South African apartheid to climate divestment, draws on this lesson. Gandhi insisted that all work, including the humble work of spinning thread, had dignity and value. He wrote, "The spinning wheel is the symbol of non-violence for me. The spinning wheel alone will solve, if anything will solve, the problem of the deepening poverty of India." In our world of growing economic inequality, where essential workers are often the lowest paid, Gandhi's insistence on honoring all labor feels revolutionary. The Charkha taught that work itself could be prayer, that repetitive labor, done mindfully, could quiet the mind and connect you to something larger than yourself. As mindfulness and meditation gain popularity in the West, the Charkha's lesson becomes clear. You don't need to sit in silence to meditate. You can spin, you can work, you can make things with your hands while calming your mind. Spinning thread is slow. Gandhi knew this. That was part of the point. In our age of instant gratification, the Charkha teaches patience. Real change takes time. Freedom isn't won in a day. You spin one thread, then another, then another. Eventually, you have fabric. Gandhi wrote, "The spinning wheel does not require any master to teach. You have simply to sit at the wheel and get going. You cannot dictate. It is the spinning wheel which gives you the message, I am here to serve you, provided you will serve me. I will not allow you to become lazy or sleep at the wheel. You are free to use me or destroy me. I shall not complain." Not everyone agreed with Gandhi then, and not everyone agrees with his Charkha philosophy now. Critics said hand spinning is economically inefficient compared to machine production. Rejecting industrialization would keep India poor. The Charkha was romantic nostalgia, not practical policy. Gandhi's village-centered economy ignored urban needs and modern development. These criticisms had merit. After independence, India did industrialize rather than adopt Gandhi's village model, and India's economy has grown substantially through industrialization and global integration. But Gandhi never claimed that Charkha was the only solution. He claimed it was a necessary part of the solution, a way to preserve rural livelihoods, prevent the concentration of wealth, and maintain connection to sustainable practices. His biographer Lewis Fisher noted, Gandhi wanted both modern and traditional, scientific medicine alongside traditional spinning, railways alongside village crafts. He wanted India to be independent and self-reliant, not isolated and backward. The debate continues today. Can development and tradition coexist? Can we have economic growth without losing cultural heritage? Can we embrace technology without destroying sustainable practices? The Charkha asks these questions without pretending to have easy answers.
Let's get personal for a moment. What did spinning actually mean to Gandhi himself? Not as symbol, not as politics, but as daily practice. His secretary, Mahadev Desai, recorded Gandhi's spinning routine in detail. Gandhi would wake at 4 a.m. After prayers, he would spin for an hour before sunrise. He said the early morning spinning, in silence, prepared his mind for the day's challenges. Throughout the day, during meetings, while dictating letters, during train journeys, Gandhi would spin. His hands worked the wheel while his mind engaged with visitors. He set himself a daily quota, typically 450 to 600 yards of thread, some days more, never less. Even when exhausted, even when ill, he completed his quota. Gandhi explained, I do today what I expect of millions tomorrow. I'm asking the poorest Indian to spin. How could I ask this if I do not spin myself? This was Gandhi's core principle. Be the change you wish to see. The Charkha was his way of living that principle daily. But it was more than that. The spinning itself changed him. Gandhi discovered what modern neuroscience now confirms. Repetitive hand motions can induce meditative states.
The circular motion of the wheel, the rhythm of turning and drawing, the focus required to maintain even thread, all of this quieted mental chatter and created what psychologists call flow state. Gandhi wrote, "During this half hour, I am not thinking about anything. I can think of nothing but the wheel as it goes round in rhythm with my hand." For a man carrying the weight of 400 million people's freedom, that mental silence was essential. Gandhi had a temper, he admitted this. When angry or frustrated, he would spin. The physical act, the need for gentle touch, the requirement for patience would calm him. You can't spin when tense. The thread breaks. Your hands must be relaxed, your mind calm. One associate recalled, when Gandhi was most upset, he would retreat to his spinning wheel. He would emerge hours later, peaceful, ready to engage constructively. The Charkha taught emotional regulation through embodied practice. Gandhi's ashrams required everyone to spin daily, but he never asked anyone to do more than he did himself. If residents had to complete 450 yards daily, Gandhi completed 600. If they struggled with technique, he would sit beside them, demonstrating, encouraging. He believed in teaching through patient example, not through commands. The Charkha was perfect for this philosophy. There were no shortcuts, no tricks, just practice and patience. Gandhi's relationship with the Charkha deepened during his multiple imprisonments. Between 1922 and 1944, he spent nearly 8 years in British jails. In prison, the Charkha became his connection to the outside world. While spinning, he would think of the millions of Indians spinning in their villages, united in the same act. He wrote from Yerawada jail, "My spinning wheel is my prison companion. As I turn it, I remember all those working for India's freedom. We are connected by every thread I spin." During his 1932-33 imprisonment, Gandhi designed the portable Peti Charkha. He spent months perfecting the design, building prototypes from materials available in prison, testing and refining. That a prisoner had time to invent a better spinning wheel tells you about Gandhi's priorities. Political strategy? Important, but improving the tools of economic self-reliance? Essential. In 1947-48, during the terrible Hindu-Muslim violence surrounding partition, Gandhi was heartbroken. The independence he'd fought for had come with enormous bloodshed. He continued spinning, perhaps more than ever. One photograph from December 1947 shows Gandhi rail-thin and weary, sitting at his charkha. His face shows the weight of communal violence he couldn't stop, but his hands continue their work, turning, drawing, creating thread. Even when the world was falling apart, the charkha remained, the work continued. 3 weeks before his assassination, Gandhi gave away his personal charkha to an American missionary. One final gift, one final connection. On January 30th, 1948, Gandhi was shot while walking to evening prayers. He died at age 78. His charkha sat unused, but across India, millions continued spinning, carrying forward the practice he had lived. The story of Gandhi's spinning wheel isn't just Indian history, it's human history. It's about what happens when ordinary people decide they've had enough, when they realize that their daily choices, what they buy, what they wear, how they spend their money, are political acts. It's about discovering that you don't need weapons to fight oppression. Sometimes the most powerful resistance is simply making things yourself instead of buying from your oppressor. Gandhi's genius was recognizing that revolutions don't require grand gestures. They require millions of small actions repeated daily. Spinning 450 yards of thread in one day seems insignificant, but spinning 450 yards every day for 20 years, that's millions of yards. That's a movement. One modern activist notes, people get discouraged because they can't do everything. Gandhi showed us that doing something, one small thing, consistently is enough. The Charkha was that small thing that became everything. Gandhi understood symbols unite people. The Charkha became instantly recognizable, appearing on flags, in artwork, in political cartoons worldwide. When you saw a spinning wheel, you knew what it stood for: resistance, self-reliance, non-violence, dignity. Modern movements struggle without clear symbols. Gandhi showed how powerful the right symbol can be. Britain ruled India with military force, but Britain couldn't survive without India's economic cooperation. By attacking the economic relationship, by refusing to buy British goods, Indians hit where it hurt most, the profit margin. This strategy has been repeated worldwide. Boycotts work because they transform consumers into activists. Every purchase becomes a vote. Gandhi wasn't just interested in Indian independence, he was interested in how India became independent. If India had won freedom through violence, it would have inherited a culture of violence. By winning through nonviolence and the Charkha, India inherited a different legacy. The process shapes the outcome. How you struggle determines what you become. The beauty of the Charkha movement was its accessibility. You didn't need education, you didn't need money, you didn't need permission. If you had hands, you could spin. If you could spin, you could resist. This inclusivity was revolutionary. Unlike most political movements that rely on elites or specialists, the Charkha made everyone a participant.
What would Gandhi's Charkha be today? Some suggest it's growing your own food, withdrawing from industrial agriculture. Others say it's solar panels, creating your own energy instead of buying from utilities. Maybe it's repairing things instead of replacing them, rejecting planned obsolescence. Or perhaps it's simply choosing ethical, local, sustainable products over cheap, exploitative, mass-produced goods. The principle remains: find ways to be self-reliant, reduce dependence on systems that exploit you, make daily choices that align with your values. In 2019, a group of climate activists in Europe launched Fridays for Future strikes, inspired partly by Gandhi's methods. They didn't use violence. They organized economic boycotts of polluting companies. They created powerful symbols, the blue planet. One organizer, when asked about inspiration, said, "Gandhi showed that ordinary people can change everything, not through violence, but through sustained, organized, nonviolent action." That's what we're doing. Our Charkha is our choice to divest, to boycott, to demand change. The wheel keeps spinning. Here's what Gandhi's spinning wheel ultimately teaches us. Power doesn't just come from governments, armies, or wealth. Power comes from economic independence, moral clarity, and millions of people making aligned choices. The British Empire had armies, it had weapons, it had industry, it ruled a quarter of the planet. India had spinning wheels, and the spinning wheels won. Not because thread is stronger than steel, but because economic self-reliance is stronger than economic exploitation, because moral force is stronger than military force, because people united in purpose are stronger than empires built on oppression. Today, if you visit India, you can see Gandhi's Charkha in museums, silent, still, behind glass. But if you visit the villages of India, you can hear Charkhas humming. Artisans still spin. Weavers still create khadi. The tradition lives. The Khadi and Village Industries Commission reports that in recent years, khadi sales have broken records. Young Indians are rediscovering hand-spun cloth, not out of nostalgia, but out of choice. They're choosing sustainability over fast fashion, tradition over trend, meaning over convenience. The wheel continues turning. What would Gandhi say today? If Gandhi were alive today, what would he make of our world? He would see environmental destruction and say, "See what happens when you prioritize profit over sustainability?"
The Charkha showed another way. He would see economic inequality and say, see what happens when wealth concentrates in few hands? The Charkha distributed prosperity. He would see political polarization and say, see what happens when you forget our common humanity? The Charkha brought people together across all divisions. And he would probably sit down, pull out his Charkha, and begin to spin. Because that was Gandhi's ultimate message. Don't just talk about change. Don't just protest injustice. Create alternatives. Build the world you want to see, one thread at a time. The Charkha invites each of us to ask, what am I dependent on that I could create myself? What am I buying that I could make? What systems am I supporting that I should resist? What small daily action could I take that, multiplied by millions, might change everything? You don't need a spinning wheel to answer these questions. The Charkha is metaphor as much as tool, but the principle remains. Real freedom requires real self-reliance. Real change requires real commitment. Real transformation starts with what you do today and tomorrow and the day after that. Gandhi spun every day for decades. He never saw it as burden. He saw it as privilege, the privilege of participating in his own liberation and his nation's freedom. On August 15, 1947, when India raised its khadi flag at midnight, every thread in that flag represented someone's labor, someone's choice, someone's resistance. Collectively, those threads wove a nation. Gandhi's spinning wheel taught us that liberation isn't something given by authorities. It's something you spin for yourself, thread by thread, day by day, choice by choice. And that lesson, that simple, profound, revolutionary lesson, remains as true today as it was when Gandhi first sat down at his Charkha over a century ago. The wheel continues turning. The revolution continues spinning, and every thread carries the same message. Freedom is something you make with your own hands. If this documentary opened your mind to the power of Gandhi's spinning wheel, honor that by taking action. Subscribe to this channel for more deep dive historical documentaries. Hit the like button. Share this with anyone who needs to hear Gandhi's message of nonviolent resistance and economic self-reliance. And maybe, just maybe, find your own Charkha, your own small daily practice that aligns with your values and resists exploitation. Because Gandhi proved something extraordinary. Simple tools, wielded by millions with moral purpose, can change the world. Thank you for watching. Now go spin your revolution.